Please rise as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Marnie, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Leaks-May.
Here.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika.
Here.
Councilmember Piana.
Here.
And Mayor Coulter.
Here, thank you. And we have a quorum this evening. Next item of business would be the approval of the agenda.
If it is the Baker College update.
All right, we'll add that as presentation C.
I'll move to accept the agenda as amended.
Support.
All right, any discussion on the agenda?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika.
Yes.
Councilmember Piana.
Yes.
Councilmember Leaks-May.
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. The agenda is adopted. Moving on now, next item is presentations, and we have 3 presentations now, and the first one is our Oakland County Commissioner, Helene Zach, who I see in the audience, and I suspect left us these orange cards as the chair of the Finance Committee.
Back, your Oakland County Commissioner. Arts and the Arts Authority. This is the body that oversees our millage dollars that are collected, and they are exceeding all of our expectations for community engagement, spending dollars in our schools, for seniors, so forth. I do want to remind people that every Thursday are senior days at the DIA. There's a lot of additional activities. On weekends, there's family activities. It's all part of your entry as Oakland County residents. A lot going on in our Oakland County Parks and Recreation Department. First and foremost, they are making another investment in South Oakland County Parks. They're doing a partnership investing in Normandy Oaks in Royal Oak. They're putting in a trail, a bridge, something else that up to $1 million that Oakland County is going to invest. One of the things that I'm excited about is that there's now a new line item in the Oakland County Parks budget that allows for some community partnership. But it has to be a big land mass, bigger than a local park, and have some unique specialty. But it does leave the door open for me to present interesting projects that might come our way. Along with parks, a couple of other things. There was some question mark about whether they were going to renovate 2 of the fields at Catalpa Oaks for soccer. And I know we have a very active South Oakland Soccer Club. There's almost 1,000 students that do include Ferndale, 5 communities. And so they are going to renovate 2 of the soccer fields. And this is from day one when we worked on the park, that it's long overdue. They need irrigation and foundation work. Finally, the parks are working on an off-road vehicle park, and they have been working on this. It's getting closer to fruition. It'll be in Holly. I am watching. A lot of it is funded through the state parks, the DNR. And the target date for opening is July 2020. And I know that there's a lot of people in Oakland County that like to do off-road vehicle and that they have to travel quite a distance. So this is going to be in Holly, so maybe about. Want to remind the community there's always mini grants available from Brooksy Way. And for health projects, I know that we've applied for them here before. Held at Catalpa Oaks, but because of the renovation, they've moved it to Warden Park in Royal Oak. This is on April 19th, and that park is at Lexington and Crooks Road. Finally, I want to remind people that on Wednesday, April 24th, is a free senior day at the zoo from 10 to 3. And I do encourage you, and seniors are defined as 62 and older. And I want to remind people that that's available. That's about it. Any questions for me? Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine.
All right, our next presentation is the Police Department Awards presentation, introduction of new officers and CEO officer, and Chief Palazzolo is going to introduce those.
Mayor, Council, how are you tonight?
Excellent.
Before we get rolling, whenever we have a chance to give awards, I always feel proud of the great work that our officers do. But unfortunately, the awards that they're getting for really puts point to the epidemic that we have going on. These are all life-saving awards due to the use of Narcan. So I kind of wanted to give a few statistics before we give these to kind of set the tone. We have issued 103 doses of Narcan by our officers since 2016. There were 61 overdoses. 7 of those were deaths. 54 were saves. 8 of those were at 100 West 8 Mile. There was 4 this month. So it shows that there's a spike. These kind of go cyclic because of the things that are being put in, what's being spread around. And the statistics that we're being told that 2% of lives saved are by law enforcement, and 75% of lives saved through use of Narcan are done through members of the community. So family members, owners of bars, and things like that. Sergeant Brown ran a Narcan training with Oakland County Mental Health a month or two ago, and there was 40 people. We're going to do that again. So members of the public are interested in learning this life-saving skill and getting that medicine. Send Sergeant Brown an email at bbrown@ferndalepolice.org. So if I could get the following officers to come stand up here. Officer Skomsky, Officer Walker, Officer Batens, Officer Saley, Officer Lemke, and Officer DeWoolley. The first incident happened on February 1st, 2019 at 2:39 in the morning. Ferndale officers responded to 2 males that overdosed on heroin in the 100 block of Ardmore. A hysterical female caller flagged down officers and led them to the upstairs apartment. 2 males are slumped over the bed inside a small bedroom. Officer Walker quickly moved one of the male subjects to the living room of the residence, then returned to the bedroom to assess the second male. Officer Skomsky and Officer Zaley assessed the male in the living room and quickly began administering Narcan. The male was unconscious, turning purple, agonal breathing, and had a rapid pulse. Officer Skomsky administered the first dose, while Officer Saley loaded the second dose of Narcan. Officer Basin also assisted in preparing the Narcan. Overall, officers administered 3 doses of Narcan. Ferndale Fire arrived and administered the 4th dose of Narcan. After the 4th dose, the male subject awoke and was breathing normally. I can't add that the Ferndale Fire Department also assists with these. They carry this life-saving medicine as well. So it's not us just working at this alone. We're working in partnership. So for their actions that night, they are being awarded the Lifesaver Award. Second incident on March 12th at 8:29 hours, Officer Lemke, Skomsky, and DeWoolley were dispatched to the 100 block of Ardmore on an unresponsive male. The homeowner called 911 and reported that the subject was overdosing on heroin. Officers evaluated the subject to determine he had a pulse and agonal breathing. Lemke, Skomsky, and DeWoolley each administered 1 dose of department-issued Narcan and monitored the subject's vitals until fire department arrived. The subject then regained consciousness and walked out of the house to the ambulance. This was a great example of teamwork. For their actions on each one of these nights, they're all being awarded the Life-Saving Award.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to call up Officer Quishin and Officer Maulmeister. Whenever we get a chance, we like to introduce new officers to the community and to council. This has happened quite a bit over the last 2 years. Officer Quishin comes to us. He was born in the city of Detroit. He actually worked for the Detroit Police Department for a bit. Is an active member of the Michigan Army Reserves, and we are very fortunate to have him on board. He's also the tallest person we have. Officer Maulmeister is going to be our new community engagement officer. Sergeant Brown is moving to our professional standards division, and he will still have a hand in community engagement, but Officer Maulmeister is going to take over the day-to-day duties. She comes to us from Phoenix PD. She worked there for 6 years. She was a distinguished officer. She came to Ferndale over several larger agencies because of the small town feel, and we are very happy to move her into this position.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to Ferndale, and be safe. Excellent. And now Jordan is going to give an update on the Baker College NRA, correct?
Yes, sir. Just pull this up here. Thank you, Mayor, Council. As the Mayor mentioned, I did want to just give a brief update on the progress of the Ferndale Baker NRA, the exclusive negotiating rights agreement process. Just to point out, too, we'll also be providing these updates at every council meeting until the expiration of the NRA at the end of April. So this is just the first in that series. This one really just wanted to take a moment to recap. We had a major community meeting that the city participated in on March 21st. It was a Baker-led meeting that was organized in response to community feedback, questions about the college, their reputation, their operations, and their overall story. Based on additional community feedback, the city actually asked for some time on the agenda to answer some frequently asked questions related to process, return on investment, things like that. This is just a general summary of what that meeting was like in case folks missed it. And by the way, some of the things I'm going to talk about today, there's some details to the Q&A that occurred that are available online on our project page, and there's some printed off copies on the back by the sign-in sheet too if people want to grab those. We can make more of those upon request, but there's like 40 copies back there. But again, this meeting that took place on the 21st that was driven by community feedback led with an open house by Baker staff, students, alumni, and representatives from their Owasso campus, so folks that were in economic development over there. Baker staff gave a presentation on frequently asked questions of them about the college, and the city staff, as I had mentioned, had requested some time to provide additional FAQs related to the NRA process, the return on investment potential, and things like that. So after those presentations, there were some table discussion and question and answer facilitated by the third-party consultant that the city had brought on board to provide sort of a third-party resource in terms of helping make sure that folks from the public in various scenes and settings are heard and their input is captured. And then this was attended by approximately 50 to 60 residents and business owners, in addition to Baker staff, city staff, and members of Ferndale City Council. And this was held at Incubizo in the evening. So that was the general tenor of what happened there. I wanted to kind of, again, just highlight some of the things that were discussed in case folks missed that meeting. Baker's history, operations, reputation, and proposed plan. Information about the city evaluation process for the project and opportunities for more engagement, as well as project-related specifics such as the desired economic and community outcomes, construction timing, location and design options, as well as opportunities to guarantee performance from Baker / recourse options if they don't perform if this project were to be allowed to proceed. just wanted to kind of also point out just opportunities to provide more information, to get more information, and to provide input. There's online resources. There's ferndalemi.gov/projects with an S/Baker. Comments and questions can be submitted also online, baker@ferndalemi.gov. We had that set up so that all responses would be tracked and captured and nothing got missed. So those responses to those will either be posted online as part of an FAQ or via direct email response as soon as possible. I will just point out this isn't the only project the city is working on, so that's why we set up that email to make sure that if you did have a comment or question, that it gets tracked and we'll get a response as part of this process. But also by phone. We also have CED, Community Economic Development staff, standing by to, during business hours anyway, to take questions at 248-546-2382 during city business hours. So you can, if you don't have email or if the internet's not your thing, you can call us up and talk to us as well. Also, opportunities for in-person dialogue and engagement. So the next upcoming public meeting is Wednesday, April 3rd, 2019, 6:30 p.m. at City Hall, right here inside Council Chambers. That's going to be a Planning Commission discussion. So as part of the Planning Commission, they'll be having a non-voting discussion about the design concepts the developer plans to propose and put forward design modifications that were made in response to community input. And then again, CED will be here every council meeting until the end of the NRA, which expires at the end of April, providing update presentations on where we're at in the NRA, the different milestones that are coming to light, and all the different information that is available at that time. And with that, again, just a brief update on where we are since the meeting on Thursday. Again, all the information, the details that were discussed, all this stuff is online. Hot and cold mic today. All that stuff is available online, and there are some printed copies in the back here for folks that came interested in this project. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Just for clarification, you say end of April. The actual date is April 24th.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions of Jordan? Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank
it. We look forward to more updates. Next item of business would be call to audience. This is your opportunity, if you're here with us in person, to address council on any issue that you like that's not on our regular agenda, because you can speak to that when we get to that portion of the agenda. But if you'd like to address council, just come on up, give us your name, address, and 3 minutes is yours. Good evening.
Good evening. Evelyn Elster, 760. When I asked for a little money to be thrown into the audio recordings, I was thinking $50 for a couple of mics, not $40K for some food management service, just in case you were wondering. Which was on the agenda, pulled from the agenda last meeting. I'd like to speak about the Geary Park improvements, but it's not about the grant, so I'm all good there. In regards to said improvements, a majority of individuals consulted regarding the park improvements do not live in the neighborhood. This is a neighborhood park. A majority of individuals who made the decisions regarding the improvements do not live in the near vicinity of the park. Subsequently, the changes to be made will be imposed on our quiet, peaceful little neighborhood without our consent and alter the quality of our lives. 29 out of 95 mature trees in the park, not counting the Heroes Garden, are slated to be cut down under this plan. That's unacceptable. Supposedly 117 saplings are to be planted, but will take 40 or more years to mature. Ms. Wheeler of Parks and Rec then had the audacity to request volunteer gardeners after this gut punch to any self-respecting horticulturalist. An environmentally friendly perception of sustainability obviously differs from that of Ferndale City's officials. Any person with an appreciation in nature will tell you that sustainability refers to plants and wildlife that enrich our existence. Obviously, your idea of sustainability refers to that of concrete, asphalt, and an amusement atmosphere. If a gardener had been asked what improvements could have been made, they might have told you a water feature would have been pleasant, with a little waterfall and reflecting pool. This reflecting pool could have been home to frogs, turtles, and possibly koi fish. Benches could have been placed around the pool for respite from the daily craziness in the lives of our citizens. Children could have been educated and given an appreciation in nature, while shallow narcissists could admire their reflections, serving most aspects of the public spectrum. In future, I would request you not deceive the public and specify when you refer to sustainability that you mean sustainability of concrete, asphalt, and your endless entertainment, not the environment or nature. Don't be surprised. You keep pushing the window and poking the bear, so brace yourselves for some backlash. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Becky Hammond. I live at 830 West Drayton. I am also here to talk about Geary Park and the trees. I only found out about this less than a week ago. I would feel silly doing this, saying that I'm here as the Lorax and I speak for the trees, except I don't think I've ever heard anything quite as silly as 29 mature trees coming down in one single park, which, as Evelyn just pointed out, is a third of the trees in that park. I didn't show up at any of the skate park meetings because I don't oppose a skate park. In fact, I'm pretty sure that my son, Chris, 20 years ago, stood in this spot in front of City Council as about a 16-year-old, called very passionately for a skate park, and did such a good job that maybe 3 different newspapers contacted him afterwards, and he had a front-page story in something like the Oakland Press. So I obviously don't oppose skate parks. I think that if my son, a skate park didn't happen, but if the city had gone ahead with a skate park and had decided to cut down any mature trees, I think he would have laid down in front of the chainsaws and kept it from happening. I didn't show up at these skate park meetings being the Lorax because I didn't think there were any trees that were going to come down. If I thought any were going to come down, maybe 1 or 2. But I also thought that you guys were the Lorax, and I thought that that's why I helped elect all of you. I thought that I could count on you guys being the protector of the trees, the mature trees, which are so important, I think, in this kind of old suburb, which has old parks. They're very limited green spaces. They don't have a lot of trees. We don't have a lot of stuff to go to here. So they're all we have, and that's why I think they need to stay the way they are, and big trees need not come down. I hear that they're going to be replaced, but you can't replace a big tree. You can plant a little one. We all know that if we accidentally, something happens to a large tree we have and we have to replace it with a smaller one, we're pretty heartbroken. And I don't think that just because these trees are public property that they're any less precious to us than if they're a big tree in our own yard that a storm blows down or that it becomes unsafe. So 29 trees on 10 acres, more or less, is 3 trees per acre. And that's, to me, it's unacceptable. We have a reputation as a supposedly green city. And I think in the same way that large trees in our yard enhance our property values, I think large trees in a park enhance the value of a park. What I'm about to say is not in opposition to a skate park because, again, I don't oppose them. But my husband, this is just to provide some balance for which is more valuable, a skate park for a small number of people or trees for a large number of people. My husband looked up, he loves to crunch numbers, he looked up some skate park pages. He used those in Ferndale demographics, and based on the fact that adolescent males are the main ones who use skate parks, we in Ferndale would have about 38 young men who will likely use a skate park and about 7 young women. On Facebook, I've been called sexist for pointing this out, but I didn't create this. I'm just saying this is the way it is. When there was a meeting, and I watched a lot of things, city council, things online, again, because I understand that there was a meeting that 20 teens showed up to, but having worked with many environmental groups around here, and most of the leaders of those groups, various branches of the Sierra Club, worked closely with high schools. And all the high schools have environmental organizations and biology classes and things that are involved in with students concerned about the environment. I know that if students at Ferndale High School had been told that 29 trees, a third of the trees in Geary Park were coming down, you would have had more than 20 students here to protest this.
And you're at your 3 minutes if you could conclude.
Okay. So I'll just quickly say, I feel like this is a little microcosm of pretty much every environmental issue I've ever heard of. Some outsider wants something that somebody else has. I feel like you guys have done a wonderful job turning this city around. I've lived here since '86. The city did have problems. You guys all fixed it. Now that you fixed it and everybody wants a piece of us, you have to protect us from that. Everybody can't have us. It's your job to be the wall up. And as Evelyn said, I feel like there's going to be pushback. I hear a lot of people saying, vote this out if they won't do what we elected you to do. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Oh,
He's going to be playing a video, I think, or audio.
okay.
Hi, my name Corey Holland. I am a victim of a brutal hate crime. In 2012, two white lesbians decided they wanted a child. So they targeted me, because of my race, Muslim faith, and criminal background. They lied, said I beat and raped the baby's mother and I held her captive in my basement and this is how she became pregnant. None of this is true, but the women had to figure out how to get rid of me. Now I'm here because they claim gay activists here in Ferndale told them how to pull off this crime. I don't want anyone to be targeted in the gay community, so instead of passing out flyers about this, like I was planning to do, I wanted to reach out first to the LGBTQ community and inform them of this hate crime. Hopefully if they know anyone who assisted these women they will come forward. These women were so bold. They called me and demanded my infant child at the time and thousands of dollars or they would write fake witness statements and have me arrested. When I refused their extortion attempt, they wrote those fake statements and had me arrested for a 5-year felony. I want justice for what these women did and all those who helped them. Cause trust me if the tables were turned and if someone targeted a LGBTQ member simply for their sexual orientation, that community would want justice. A doctor who helped these women named Joshua Erklich lied said I was basically the living version of Hannibal Lecter, but I have him on tape, and he put things in his psychological report to make me seem insane. So he fabricated evidence to help the gay couple. Several mental health officials have testified that he railroaded me. All of this was done by gay activists. One, a newly elected Judge Carol Kunk, and prominent activists attorney Lisa Peterson in Ann Arbor. I was a very strong supporter of the LGBTQ community before these activists targeted me, and still am. But I want justice. These women claimed I beat, raped, and held captive the baby mother all because she was gay. This was all fabricated for a criminal conspiracy these women and their co-conspirators cooked up. However, last year they admitted there was no rapes or beatings, but the damage was done. Because of this conspiracy I was in a horrible car accident, lost my ability to speak, can't read or write without my devices. I have had multiple surgeries, and they made it possible for me to walk again. So if anyone knows who helped Paige and Allison Taylor with this crime, please come forward with whatever you may know. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Daniel Moyer. I live on Central Street. I'm here today in firm opposition of the Baker College proposal. I wanted to start with some quotes from our directed officials, or elected officials, that is. Most of these are from January 15th, either from Mike McConnell's article in the Royal Oak Tribune or Robert Allen's in the Detroit Free Press. Mayor Coulter and others on the City Council said they see good potential in the proposed campus project. A quote by Mayor Coulter: "The initial response from residents has been very positive. I think folks are so used to seeing another restaurant or bar or mixed-use development that I think there's some excitement about having this type of use in our downtown. The college campus is, quote, an exciting opportunity." Councilwoman Piana: "This is a dating relationship and not a marriage. One thing I'm going to be focused on is good urban design." And we see that the Planning Commission meeting coming up on Wednesday is once again focused on design, which is obviously an important aspect. I would like to talk about the community fit of a progressive city welcoming a predatory and failing institution like Baker. And I would like to hear some responses eventually from our elected officials. As we continue to look at some quotes from our elected officials, this project with Baker College would definitely be an injection and infusion of people into our downtown during the day, said Councilwoman Piana, adding that it would tremendously help local businesses. That's one of the main goals that we have for the downtown and why this project helps us achieve that if it goes forward. Piana said that there had previously been multiple offers from other parties to develop the location Baker is pursuing, but the council was, quote, behind the scenes saying no. So what conclusions are we to draw from this? That's my question. The conclusions I draw are perhaps you didn't properly vet Baker when you voted unanimously to engage in this NRA. Perhaps you think bringing the worst college in the state of Michigan is a positive, and perhaps you think that's a sell to our community. Maybe the Ferndale High School students should be really excited about the potential of working with an institution like Baker. I don't know. I'm pretty sure we can do better. Without evidence and data, you think this will be positive for the community. You continue to talk about how this is a win for local business, but we have some of the most prominent downtown business members opposed to this project. You are opposed to other projects, right? But you are in favor of this one perhaps, as again, that quote said, behind the scenes we are saying no to other potential opportunities. The last quote I want to read, and I know I'm at 3 minutes, comes from Mayor Coulter on March 1st, and I hope that there's some optimism in this quote. Some of the downtown businesses have personally reached out to express support, but I think we're all now in the learning mode. And so from January to March, hopefully you've learned. I really hope so. I haven't been up here scolding you, wagging my finger at you in the past because I've trusted the officials that I've elected. This decision has certainly made me question that. The idea that there's support for this project seems flimsy at best. I am sure that you have had individuals behind the scenes in support of this project. I also know for fact that many individuals behind the scenes have spoken to you, have written to you, opposed to this project, beyond just the numbers that we have here, time in and time out. Ultimately,
Dan, you are at 3 minutes, so actually a little more, so if you could just...
Yep, I appreciate that. The narrative we're seeing here of a progressive city cutting down trees, a progressive city welcoming an institution like Baker is troubling, right? I hope that you show us that our faith that we've placed in you over the years has been appropriate and has been indeed granted, and that you vote against this on April 22nd. And if you're going to vote for it, you need to make the case. And you need to come out and state why you're for it, and you need to show us data, and you haven't done any of this yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Jim Bellinson, and I'm one of the new owners of Como's. And first I want to say my wife owns part of Axel Brewery as well. And while we had the paving going on over there, the city was great working with us to get parking alternatives, so we appreciate that. I'm a little concerned that I'm going to maybe get hit again with a parking traffic issue with Baker College, and I'm not going to make a judgment on whether it's good or bad for the city because there's a process in place and we're actually involved in that. But what I do want to say is when we started that project, we did it with the understanding that there would be adequate parking. We're still on here. Taking the whole lot right behind our restaurant is going to have a huge impact on us, more than anyone else. Also, may ultimately be good for us. I'm not sure yet. But what I would ask is that if you are going to approve it and there's going to be a parking structure built, I know that's proposed across the street, because of the parking problems that have existed in the city and gotten worse and are getting worse over the years, I would ask that if it is approved, that it gets approved with the provision that the parking structure is completely finished before they start building the actual college. It seems like I'm not the only one that's going to be affected by that. If you take that lot away and you don't have another one, it seems like that's an easy thing to do, is to have the parking structure completely up and functional before you take the other one away. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, Sharon Chess, and I'm here representing the Ferndale Community Concert Band. April 7th is our free concert, 3 o'clock in the afternoon at the high school. This is our kaleidoscope concert, and what that means is we'll play a couple of lengthy pieces, 7 to 10 minutes long. And then after intermission, we break out and we'll have approximately 7 smaller ensembles, all band members, that have each chosen a piece to play individually. We also are, as I always tell you, have a gifted musician and composer within our group. He's currently a student at Wayne State University. He's written a composition very specific for our band, and he'll be conducting that. That's Sean Lee. So we feel very, very gratified to have somebody of his caliber, a young man like this, so successful and already composing. So I encourage you to all come out on April 7th, 3 o'clock in the afternoon at Ferndale High School. Listen to us play. It is free, and we do have our bake sale immediately following. All of our musicians bake, and so they're wonderful. On a different note, what I'd like to ask Chief Palazzolo is, these incidences of overdoses and loss of life temporarily, are they affecting our students and the young people in our community? And is there Narcan currently at the school in case it is needed, or is it strictly adults?
Chief, do you know that data off the top of your head?
We have not had one overdose that I'm aware of at any of the schools. All officers carried Narcan in their vehicles, and our school resource officer has that, the Narcan in their vehicle. I don't know if the school has additional, but I'll check in there. It's actually a pretty good idea. Might not be a bad thing to roll into. Something else we're going to ask of our teachers, not only active shooter and things like that, but maybe they ought to be trained on the use of Narcan. So it's not a bad idea. Thank you.
But so far, we haven't had an incident.
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Sharon. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. Ben Buttolph of Highland Street. I've spoken before on my opposition to the Baker College project. I'm not going to rehash old, things that have already been said. I'm here with some new information that I gained at the Baker College presented open house. First of all, we learned of a, what was it? A study committee and focus groups. I'd like to know, because that's the first I'd heard of them, who is on those and how they were picked. Because when I asked Anika Medeo of Bridgeport Consulting, that's who Baker College has hired to consult for them, she said that City Council picked people. There were approximately 3, I think she said, actual citizens on that committee. I don't think that's enough, and I'd personally like to know how they were chosen. Moving on from that, I did question Ms. Spicer, COO of Baker College, about some of the design plans and renderings that were presented at that open house. For one, she was quoted in various publications as saying that changes were being made to the designs and renderings based on community input. I asked her what specifically those were, because from what I could see, only the windows had been changed in the renderings. And she explained that the facade was changed in compliance with city requirements, which is great. I did ask her about the green space that's required as well, because from the renderings it looked like it was only a couple bushes out front. She said they are now focusing on working on green space on their roof, and they're going to present that to you. They think residents are going to want to come up on their roof and go through their college to get to this green space that's required. So that's very interesting to me. I also asked her about the retail space because a friend who was with me at the open house who has a degree in interior design, works with blueprints a lot, said that they appeared extremely small. They were broken into two little teeny tiny spaces. And Ms. Spicer told me that at the request of City Council, that you've asked her to make them smaller because you want to cater to smaller tenants with lower rents. And for a project that's not putting out any tax revenue, we're lowering that tax revenue even more. So that's interesting. Finally, I took a lot of problem with the fact that there was no rendering of the parking structure, since that's the big sell, is my takeaway. It was mentioned very briefly, obviously no hard facts, but what was presented and kind of passed over quickly is that it will be approximately, for the amount of spaces that it needs to be with the footprint that it needs to be 6 stories tall next to our beautiful library. What I'm picturing for 6 stories tall is this. I don't know if everybody can see. It's this lovely metal shoebox that we see in Royal Oak. A lot of people come to City Council and say, don't Royal Oak my Ferndale. Well, a 6-story parking structure in that space is going to do just that. So I'd like some clarification on these new designs, and she did promise a rendering before the final vote of what that parking structure will be, and I hope you hold her to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Nate Rivard. I live at 250 College.
Neil, did you?
Nate.
Nate.
Nate Rivard.
Okay.
And I'm currently working on the house so that my family, my 2 children, wife, and I can move in hopefully this year. And I also own a rental on La Prairie Street, close to 8 Mile. I'm against Baker College. I don't know a lot of the information, but I'd like to talk a little bit about that today. When I was a little kid, my parents live 3 streets away from downtown Royal Oak, and there was going to be a giant, like a 20-foot structure put just on the border of the border between the businesses and the homes surrounding Royal Oak. And they eventually turned it into a parking structure and put a little park there. So one of the things, if this goes through, or if, looking at these plans, to consider the homes that surround this place and either give them a decent buffer or a playground, or it needs to be substantial because 6 stories right in front of your house is huge. And then I'm pretty busy, so I tried looking up information and studies, and I looked at a few articles that you guys participated in. But anyway, I listened to a couple business TED Talks that were pretty interesting. One was Kate Raworth, who's an Oxford economist, and she talked about we need to be built to thrive, and using like green energy and things like that. And I talked about trees, and a park going into this city lot. Possibly there's another place for Baker to be at. But also it could be and then the other one was Drew Philp, and he moved to Detroit, bought a house for $500, and talked about radical neighborness, radical neighborness. And if you want to look these up, they're like 15-minute videos, and the punches at the very end in the last minute of each video. But if you so you could make this park, green space, if you renewable energy. Also, if you put if Baker goes there, we're going to lose that space that is utilized during our street festivals, which is huge. It's awesome. Kids play there and stuff like that. If you made a park in where that city parking lot is, and got somebody or got a decent tax base to help out the citizens, it would be cool to have a bathroom and a water station. That would take out homeless from the businesses, from the library. It would also localize some of that, some of those transients that you could keep an eye on, but it would also help them. Radical neighborness, keeping people hydrated and taken care of. And I think that that is about it. Also, return on investment, keeping people in downtown during business hours. If you had green space and a park and public restrooms and a place to fill up your water bottles, I'm sure a lot more people would be in that downtown area longer. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Hello. Thank you, Council, for your work and the opportunity to speak here. Timothy Risk, 541 West Hazelhurst Street, 12 years in Ferndale in a 95-year-old ranch. I want to talk about my experience with the Baker College process here in Ferndale. Since the first Planning Commission meeting, February 20th, I've been to every City Council and Planning Commission meeting to talk about Baker College and the reasons I dislike this proposal, but mainly to ask questions. I was on one of those focus groups, and to maybe help answer the question, I was given I was asked to attend the focus group on Facebook. Somebody messaged me about attending that, and when I did attend it, the person from Bridgeport told me that 12 people RSVP'd. I don't know how many people were invited, but only 3 people from the community actually showed up. The person that invited me was somebody from the city. I'm not sure who it was.
Lindsay, yeah, our community engagement person, Lindsay.
Okay, great. So last week I attended the open house. I've also sent emails to city officials. I've been active in the forums. I've been talking to my neighbors, trying to raise awareness about this project. And I'll be at the event next week as well. As a resident, before all this, I watched development in Ferndale through a pretty narrow lens. Plans for buildings downtown, new restaurants, parking garages, park improvements, all that news basically came to my house through the Woodward Talk, Oakland County Times, and for the most part, I've been pretty happy with how things have been going. So, but when the Baker College was announced publicly in January, I really woke up. So, look, I understand the process. I understand the NRA. I understand the Planning Commission needs to forward this to the council and that you will vote it up and down. I understand when you say that the decision hasn't been made. I don't understand how you thought this was going to be anything but a big mess. And this is the point I want to make. My main concern, and I'll leave the podium after this, Baker College was somehow given the impression by someone or some group of leaders that moving here and opening a campus in 2020 was probable. So much so that they're preparing their students for the move, they're preparing potential employees for the move, and they've already dumped several thousands of dollars into the project by hiring a developer and an architecture firm to prepare plans so that they can break ground this summer. They're talking about spending $50 million, and they're ready to start right now. What kind of business makes those kinds of investments without some assurances? I estimate that the architects have probably been at the drawing table on this for a year, and it's not just the NRA timeline that I have a problem with. There are skeptics here. We're wondering about transparency. If this passes or not, if it doesn't pass, great. But I hope that the leaders of Ferndale think more seriously in the future about the optics of moving too fast and how that affects the trust of their constituents. Next time someone comes in with a big bag of cash and aggressive schedule, I hope that the city takes a step back, or maybe we'll have learned from this and we'll be better prepared. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Eric Klein, 300 East Lewiston, bungalow, still an ugly orange door. I attended the Baker College open house on Thursday, and I want to thank the city for attempting to address the concerns of people in the community. I felt like you did a good job of explaining the criteria that you will use to evaluate whether this project goes through or not. And one of those criteria was community input. And it seems like we keep circling around this question of what is the nature of resident support for this project. And obviously there's a very vocal group of people that are against this project, of which I include myself as one. But the fact of the matter is we don't know what the community at large thinks. And I guess I'm wondering first if that's a question that you are interested in answering. And secondly, I want to remind you that that is a question that can be answered. And you don't need to canvass all 20,000 people that live in this town. I'm trained as a statistician. If you run a random sample of about 400 residents and you follow through and make sure that you get feedback from them on whether they are in support of this project or not, you're going to know within about 5% of the true proportion who's interested in this project. And I feel like that's some information that you should want to know. I don't want to set this precedent where you have to reach out to the community every time you need to make a decision, because part of representative democracy is that you make decisions for us. But because this is going to be an anchor business in an anchor location in our city, I think this is one occasion where we might consider actually sampling the public at large. And while I've got another minute here, my 8-year-old daughter made me promise that I would ask, if you build a building in that dirt field where the church used to be, where are they going to put the floaties during the DIY fair? She's very concerned about that.
As she should be. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm John Corll. First of all, Mayor and Council, thank you for having everybody today. I'm John Corll, 1577 West Saratoga. First, I want to thank you for hearing us, listening to us, and carefully considering our serious concerns and reservations about this project, in particular this institution. Second, I am a higher education student affairs professional with over a decade of experience within this sector. Baker's reputation within my sector is not a good one. They are known as a Pell Grant. Again, Pell Grant served first generation and low income students, and GI Bill, our returned servicemen and women. They are known as a Pell Grant and GI Bill abuser. Earlier, we had somebody speak to that who came from the VA administration but spoke as a private citizen. So I do not support this institution here within the city that I know and that I love. Let's consider what we've experienced so far. Many, many members of this Ferndale community have given of their time to come out in opposition of this project, express concerns about the timeline, and most importantly, cite serious concerns about this college and institution itself. So far, we've heard from one, that I can tell, one Pleasant Ridge resident who, again, I was not at this meeting, but then turned around and voiced to members opposed to this that he thought that how dare we sit up here and oppose people's access to higher education. So I really took offense at that, because I think a lot of the people here are very concerned about this project and don't deserve to be talked down to by a resident of a different city. I was really upset when I saw that. So fourth and finally, a decision will have to be made. We talk a lot about the way that I feel about this or the way individuals feel about this, but I really want the council, mayor and council, to think about how you will feel when you break ground in front of this institution, openly celebrating it and endorsing it for our residents and people of the Detroit metropolitan area. You will be in front of that school. You will be endorsing that school despite all of the reservations that we have come before you to make public. So please consider our near unanimous opposition from the voices of the residents of Ferndale who've come out and given of their time and of their, well, mostly of their time to come out and speak in opposition to this program. So thank you so much, and I appreciate again all of your time and listening to our concerns.
Thanks, John.
Hi there, John Murray.
John.
Hi there. I'm a 15-year Ferndale resident. I'm going to go with that instead of an owner of Modern Natural Baby because from the business perspective, I'm going to talk about branding and image and how we don't go together, and it's kind of boring. Instead, I kind of just want to talk about. I want you guys to stay the course, right? Don't let a cold call from Baker set apart our vision. We're on a path. And I think what happened is Baker called us, a cold call, and basically said, hey, we have an idea for you, right? I'm like, hey, you got me excited about the dot, right? You got me excited about a parking project, and it's a game changer. I say there's nothing that we have to do extra, right? We don't have to look at Baker's vision. We got our own vision here, and you got me excited about it. So just stay the course, and I won't talk about branding or image and how I don't think the branding and image is good for Ferndale.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys, and thank you for your hard work.
Thanks, John. And for now, we're going to make you the last speaker. Normally, it's 30 minutes now and then the rest after, because we do have business.
I will be quick, I promise.
You can be the last speaker, and then there'll be additional public comment after the regular agenda.
My name is Mary Blair, and I live at 189 West Maplehurst. I've spoken, this is my third time, my husband spoke at a planning commission meeting. We moved to Ferndale at the end of January. And so I just wanted to actually touch on a point that my friend and actual coworker, who's also my neighbor now, talked about with the representative democracy. And that's really what I want to speak to is, I'm also a history teacher. So yes, we have a representative democracy and just really entrusting our elected officials to ensure that due process and to absolutely represent the people that elected them. And obviously that I'm new to this community, so I'm just starting to learn who my elected representatives are. I want to make sure that, when I and my husband and any new residents of Ferndale, when we're going to the polls next time, that we really do feel that trust. And right now, my current comfort level with the trust of this process is not really that high. So I just, again, wanted to remind, especially given our political climate, just how important it is to make sure we're holding on to a really strong representative democracy. And this is a perfect opportunity for the City Council to get that right. Thank you.
All right, that concludes public comment. I do want to reiterate, because I know some people haven't been to council before, if it seems like we're silent, it's because the public comment is your opportunity to speak. Obviously, council is going to have to weigh in on this and give you their thoughts and opinions. But if call to audience became a debate every week, we would never get to our business. And so many, many decades ago, the pattern was set that it's your opportunity to speak, and we're not going to argue with you, and you can argue with us, but we're not going to argue with you. So I understand sometimes the visual can look like we're just sitting here nodding our heads, but trust me, we're listening to you, we're taking in what you have to say, and within a short amount of time, we'll give you our perspective as well. So I just hope that's clear. Although I do want to say this. One of the things that surprised me at the meeting last week was a question that I think, Sharon, I think you probably even made this comment. You made the comment that if this is the wrong site and Baker should look for somewhere else in Ferndale to move this thing, and the room kind of exploded in applause. That surprised me, and since I have a small representation of people who are opposed to this project here, I'm curious, whether it's by a show of hands or just shaking your head no, is that true? Because I thought it's Baker and the reputation and the brand of Baker, so it's not just the site. So I'm just curious, when everyone applauded, I'm kind
of tired of being heard and not getting any answers, and the solicitation of hearing from me more is kind of condescending. I could come and ask my kids, I want to hear your thoughts on having ice cream after dinner. But if I then never respond to them after they're telling me they want ice cream, they want ice cream, they want ice cream, what good is soliciting their thoughts? What good is this idea of being heard? So I would propose, why don't we have a question and answer period with our elected officials that we could set up maybe next week or the following week, so we could actually have some true dialogue on this issue. Would you be open to that?
So my reaction is, and again, I get your frustration. I get the optics of why it's frustrating that we don't say anything. But here's what we did with this people, and we do with this firm, Baker College, and we do every time we enter an NRA. An NRA means we're going to spend X amount of time bargaining and negotiating with you and researching in good faith. If we start to share our opinions, it would violate the agreement that we have with the developer to, they'd say, well, then you've made up your mind. They'd say kind of what some of you did initially. Oh, it's a done deal. And Baker would say, wait a minute, we've got, you haven't presented to us your argument. So we are in a legally, contractually obligated time period with Baker to negotiate in good faith. So if we start sharing those opinions, frankly, I think it interferes with the intent of the NRA. I mean, I'm looking at the lawyer now. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how to say that in legalese, but that's literally the bind that we are. At the end of April, we're going to have a lot to say about what we've heard over the last 3 months, and we'll share that with you. I know it feels frustrating that we don't say more. If I said yay or nay to Baker tonight, I think Baker would have a strong argument for a violation of the agreement that we made to bargain in good faith and negotiate in this project in good faith with them, if that makes sense. And I know it's maybe not satisfactory.
Mayor Coulter, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Based on your question, I'm sorry.
Do you want to come up to the
podium? And maybe I violated just what I said we don't do, which is to debate these things. But I was like, I had you here. I was wondering. Yeah, go ahead. No, you're good.
My fault. My only question is, based on your statement, asking if it was about a location.
Yeah.
I think this has been asked before. Is there another location that's even worth talking about? Because I think that there are several arguments that I've heard. I've been here week in and week out, and I've sat on some of these. Some people say, let's have a dialogue in a different location. Some people say, no, I don't want Baker College. I don't know enough about Baker College or anybody else's business that I could speak very intelligently on.
Yeah.
So are you asking, is this something that we can talk about?
Maybe it was inappropriate of me to ask. That would totally be a Baker decision, right? They're the ones that
I understand that, but
I
understand it's always where they're going to take their business.
I don't have a place to put them, but
had there ever been a discussion of it's this location or no location in Ferndale? Is it this location we want and no other dialogue? I'm just curious because
go ahead. Yeah.
I would love to hear an answer.
Yeah. And I'm going to have the lawyer correct me if I make a misstep here. Is that the reason that this NRA went into place is because there are 9 parcels behind Como's from
You know, I like the way you guys all say behind Como's. It's behind Imperial too.
Yeah. Well, yes. Yes.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
It's not just Como's.
Right. So
and by the way, welcome.
Right. The way that I see it is that there's many parcels behind the front strip facing Woodward. The complex nature of that area, other developers have come in and tried to buy up the parcels and assemble land to propose a development.
Right.
And the city has to respond to that because it's private property and it follows the site plan and our processes. When Baker College started buying up and getting purchase agreements on the land around it, they came to say, hey, we also need to explore either your parking lot, the public parking lot, or we could go purchase some private land near Vester Street. Right? Because when we started this process, they also looked at the private parking lot on Vester Street and looked at purchasing the private land that had nothing to do with the city parking lot. So that meant the city could entertain looking at their proposal for the for our public parking lot and their private land that they have in a purchase agreement. If the deal goes through. And we could negotiate in good faith and make sure there's community benefit agreements and that the community benefits from some sort of development. And so we're looking at, is it a good deal and is it a good fit? And they are still producing that information for us to look at that information and that I can make a good decision whether it's a good deal and a good fit. I'm definitely hearing it's not a good fit, and I haven't seen anything that says, is it a good deal? Now, conversely, if this doesn't go through, they, as a private entity, can go purchase private land in downtown Ferndale, and then we would have no leverage with our public land, and they would just build their campus and follow the site plan approval process. Therefore, we would have less ability to negotiate with them to produce the outcomes that we want for our community. So this is the complex nature of this project. So do we negotiate with them on that spot, or are there other opportunities for them to go buy private land? So it's really, we can't tell them what private land to go buy.
No, I understand. I appreciate the answer because
Right?
I think
Am
that.
I answering this appropriately?
No, I think you're a little, through the chair.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Piana's a little broader, because
Yes,
there's two municipal properties at issue. There's both the City Hall municipal lot as well as the Lot 13.
I'm talking about the original proposal. Yeah.
The original, and as
Yeah.
articulated in the NRA, there's 3 potential parking lot sites that were embodied in that. But those are as it relates to the contemplated parking structure. The Lot 13 is proposed to be part of the campus, the academic building. And so the city controls whether it wishes to maintain that property as city property or consider in the context of some ultimate proposal whether it wishes to convey it. And that's
I
embodied
appreciate
in the
your answer. My only question then would be, does everybody in this room know that there are 3 parcels proposed in original that are city-owned parking structures? Because I wasn't.
No.
It's not.
On the website, it only lists the one. It says the following 3 locations, and then only lists the one.
I may have said it wrong, so I'm going to have our lawyer correct it.
I can speak
Yeah.
to the, I'm pretty familiar with the terms of the NRA from day one.
Jordan?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I actually appreciate your time.
Yeah,
I'm going to
no,
sit back
thank
down and listen to this.
So the NRA, the way it talks about, and this has been the statement from day one. This is what's been in the NRA, what's been online, what's been in the description. The way that Baker proposed the proposal, sorry to use the word twice, but essentially they came to us with a proposal that said we would like to put a school building on City Lot 13 and the grass lot next door. That's what the NRA refers to as the campus location. They said we would also like to consider putting a mixed-use parking structure on one of 3 locations. Those locations are stipulated in the NRA, spelled out on the website. During the NRA, that is what, when it's talked about as good faith, that is the proposal on the table that we spend the time evaluating, and that council will decide up or down on whether or not that's the deal they want. If that NRA expires, additional opportunities at the discretion of the applicant could be proposed, because it's not the city pushing this project, it's a private applicant coming to us, asking us to consider a proposal. If this NRA expires and the city does not opt to move forward, in theory, if Baker secures any other property in town, they could come to us and say, here, what about this one? Or if it's on private property, we don't really even have that option. It's more of, we have our ordinance and our site plan process that would come into play.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to say. I'm sorry if I got a little mixed up. So.
And I'll scratch the idea of getting a consensus on the other locations. Sorry, I didn't mean to start all of that, but yeah.
Please.
Yeah, but
For our viewers at
a lot
home.
of people watch from home, believe it or not. They really do, and they can't hear you if you don't go up to the mic.
Or on the web.
I'm sorry, just
And the
to
web.
follow up on
Yeah.
that, let's suggest that there's a private spot that they want to put a 6-story building on. The city, I know that they don't have anything other than the review process, but to be able to provide the amount of parking that would be a necessity for that many tenants, there's an in lieu of parking, and they would have to, if it's in the CBD, Central Business District, they would have to be able to provide enough spaces.
Right.
So I don't see the downfall of them trying to buy a building somewhere else and saying, okay, but if you're going to do it, you are going to be required to provide these spaces. So,
Right.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, if they want to do it somewhere else, they're going to provide parking for their people. So instead of taking away a city lot, they're going to have to figure out where their people are going to park.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's correct or not, but.
No, it just gets to my confusion of, I shouldn't say confusion, but the question of, is it no Baker anywhere or is it Baker somewhere else? And I was just a little caught off guard by the amount of applause there was for moving somewhere else when I thought that maybe the consensus was no Baker anywhere. That's what I was trying to get at.
I think there are a couple of different sides here that, so I do understand. Sorry to confuse everybody.
I've probably done more to confuse it than anyone, but thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. Thanks for speaking up. All right, so that is call to audience, and like I said, if you have additional comments that you want to make, we will reopen call to audience at the end of the agenda, just to be fair to everyone who wants to speak. But we do have more business to do, and the next item of business is a public hearing regarding the liquor license renewal, and our city attorney will introduce that item.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the date and time set for a public hearing regarding the annual consideration of liquor license renewal and whether or not council wishes to exercise its discretion to object to the renewal of the licenses. As council will recall, back on February 4th of this year, it adopted an amended and restated resolution identifying certain criteria. There were a few licensed applicants that were in default, principally with respect to water bill issues. All of them have corrected that based on the notices that were provided to them after the last council meeting, except for one. And I believe there may be a representative of Bobcat Bonnie's here. That's correct. And as I understand it, and before you this evening, there has been negotiation and discussion of a proposal whereby the licensed establishment will bring into compliance its water bill arrearage. There is a proposal before you that has been circulated just at the table since this just came to light this afternoon, which would afford the applicant and the licensed establishment up until September 1st of this year to bring current its water bill circumstance. Should council wish to consider that agreement, which I understand the establishment is prepared to execute, council would not need to proceed forward with the public hearing. So that's something for council to consider. There has been circumstance in the past where council has previously allowed for a licensed establishment for issues along this line where there is a deficiency rather than a life safety issue or a problem relative to the operation of the establishment where the city has on a couple of occasions allowed for this type of arrangement.
So are there questions of council before we get to a possible public hearing or not? Is there questions of council about an agreement, about this agreement?
Questions or not?
Pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I'm fine moving forward with it.
And again, Your
Honor,
motion would be in order to the extent that council wish to consider the agreement that has been presented at the table.
Yeah.
That would be appropriate and would alleviate the need to have the public hearing. It may be appropriate to have the representative just confirm his willingness on behalf of the establishment to enter into that that payment agreement.
Come on up. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Alex Tucker. I'm the CFO over at Bobcat Bonnie's.
And can I just ask a dumb question?
That's right.
Because this is in regards to a water bill.
Yes.
You guys are packed all the time. What's that you're behind in your water?
This doesn't have anything to do with paying the water bill on time per se. This was more of when we took the property over from Zeke's Barbecue, we inherited the balance that they received. So this has to deal more with negotiations and dealing with that. When we realized the urgency of this, we brought you guys a check for $1,500 today.
Okay.
Set in the agreement right there that we'll continue to pay that on top of our regular usage. So
I appreciate that. That was odd to me. I was going to ask you to check for leaks or something, because that just doesn't make sense.
No.
All right. So if council is in agreement, a motion would be in order.
I would move that we accept the agreement between the city of Ferndale and Bobcat Bonnie's as documented in the packet.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Now, questions or comments? All right, and as you said, Dan, there's precedent for this. We've done this in the past.
Isolated cases, but you have.
Yeah, we have some leeway with some, regular offenders. I'm stricter, but you guys have been great, and I'm sure you'll clear this up, and we look forward to you being there for many years.
thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we'll honor our agreement and come and visit.
Thank you. So, Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Polika?
Yes.
Councilmember Piana?
Yes.
Councilmember Leaksmay?
Yes.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
And Mayor Cole?
Yes, thank you. That agreement is adopted. Thank you. Moving on now, we have a second public hearing, which is the MDNR Recreation Grant applications for Martin Road and Geary Park. And Lorena, our Director of Recreation, is going to introduce that item.
Yes, so it is grant season. Every year, we pretty much apply for the MDNR grants, Michigan Department of Natural Resources Recreation Grants. We were awarded a grant in 2015 where you see improvements at Martin Road as well as Harding Park. And we were also awarded a grant in 2017 where you will see improvements at Wanda Park and Geary Park going on this summer. So we're currently applying for 3 grants. One is for Martin Road, and it's the MDNR Recreation Passport Grant, which will fund the play area. We're submitting the exact same grant that we did last year, and we weren't awarded, so we're just resubmitting it for that. And in addition to that, we're submitting a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant and Trust Fund grant for Geary Park for the exact same project. We only can get one of the two, but this increases our chances to. And for Geary Park, it will fund the new pavilion, which is in the community gathering space, walking paths, as well as play equipment such as the zip line swings and hammocks for the most part, and just general amenities such as benches and chairs and trash receptacles.
So this is a public hearing, and so before council weighs in, I want to give the audience a chance to ask any questions or make any comments. So we'll open the public hearing, and I will ask, is there anyone here from the public that would like to address council on the MDNR Recreation Grant applications for Martin Road or Geary Park? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, and now I will open it up to council for questions or comments. And I guess one of the questions I have, Lorena, is the resolutions that come in the consent agenda speak to a resolution of support and financial commitment, sort of two things. Is the requirement for financial, is a show of financial commitment required to make the application?
Yes, so we have to submit the resolution with the application.
The resolution of support or the resolution of financial commitment?
Both.
Okay, so then we might have an issue, right? Because as we heard on Saturday, we've got this laundry list of capital projects. These are somewhere on there, but it's not clear where, I mean, I know they're on the list, but it's not clear where they're going to land on the priority. So at least I personally am uncomfortable making a financial capital commitment this evening until we've done until we've vetted. So Joe, what are your thoughts on that? Or
I have a couple just follow-up questions that speak to that. Does City Council have a timeline to make a decision after award has been approved, an acceptance period, if you will, whether it be 30 days, which is pretty typical?
Yes, so the grant applications are due by April 1st, so we plan on submitting by Friday. We have until October 1st before they have their final review, and we can't make any changes to our grant application. So if we need to withdraw, we'll have until approximately October 1st to do that.
But can we add on
No.
after April 1st to October 1st?
Well, actually, we may be able to, but we would have to go through the entire process and do another.
Right, and I think to the mayor's point, I don't know that, You know, based on what we saw with the capital requests versus the funds available, we haven't gone through that prioritization process per se yet to make, it seems like we're jumping the ship a little bit to make these commitments before we prioritize more thoroughly what's in that fund.
I mean, I'm not
I'm not
opposed
opposed,
to
yeah.
improvements to these
That's what I'm
parks at all, but during the budget process, had kind of a wake-up call of our capital needs and desires, and I'm sorry, this is not public comment right now, Sharon? No. We had that. I did open it up for public comment, I'm sorry. And so I'm just concerned now, since we had far more capital projects than we have funding for. We're beginning, if we'd accept these, then we're beginning to make those decisions. I'm just pointing that out, I guess.
If I may, Mayor, I know a number of my colleagues get printed copies. Maybe you have copies of the grants in your packets, but I use the online version that the public sees, and there's no document online. So I'm actually not prepared to vote on this because I have no idea what I'm looking at. I was actually expecting to have a document tonight because it wasn't online.
It should have.
Oh, it's in my, yeah, because it was in my packet.
Yeah, there's not a document online.
That,
With the packet.
in the consent agenda, by the way, not the regular agenda.
No, we're talking about the public hearing. This is the public.
Oh, the public hearing. No, I'm talking, yeah.
Recreation grant applications
But
for Martin Road and Geary Parks.
There's nothing for that. She is sort of highlighting, I believe, items, consent agenda, item B and C, right?
Oh, I
That's
wasn't
where-
aware of that.
That's where the
Okay.
resolution.
Yeah, it's on page 33 starting.
Public hearing related to those two items on the consent agenda.
What's that?
Just to clarify, the public hearing item is related to items B and C on the consent.
It doesn't reference that online, so no one would really know unless they were told. And
Understood.
There's something that, I would be looking for something in the public hearing where the public hearing is, so. I mean, I've read those documents as part of the consent agenda. I didn't realize that those were the two documents. So thank you for clarification.
So Lorena, to clarify, if you applied, council would have until October to reevaluate and withdraw that application in support, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And if awarded by October 1st, do they still have a time to accept those awards, or?
So it's a long process, but in short, basically we have time, by October 1st is the final submittal. We should know by December, January, typically, if we were awarded. And then once we are get the award, then it goes in front of the Senate and the governor to actually sign it over. And then we get a project agreement, which normally comes out around June, where we would have to execute and do more like a final resolution that would go with a financial commitment that would go towards the execution of the project agreement with MDNR. So this is just more like a preliminary saying we're committing the funds, and if we get the grant, we'll have to do it again to say we're actually committing and we still have those funds.
Through the chair, I have a question. It says in the summary and background that the proposed grant project was reviewed and approved by the Park Board a year ago, March 2007, 2018. So this has been in the pipeline for a while. And so I'm just questioning, if we defer it, we're pushing off this project another year. That's basically what we are doing. And so bringing that to the forefront of decision-making about park investments. And is this phase 1 or phase 2 of Martin Road Park?
This would be phase 2.
Phase 2. So if we don't go ahead with the grant application, and we reprioritize, we would be putting off phase 2 investment probably by another 2 years, one grant cycle, and then have to apply again. So I'm just wondering, the $67,000 match, that's the total amount the city would be contributing to in order to make this project phase 2 go, or is this just a portion of what you're asking for? Can you give us a reminder?
Yes, so this is for, remember, we're doing 3 grants. So for Martin Road Park, it will be the passport grant. That is correct. So we are actually, the entire project would be approximately $217,000, where MDNR will pay $150,000 if awarded, and we are matching 30%, which would be $67,000.
Right, but you're not asking for any additional funds above and beyond $67,000 to pay for other phase 2 activities. this grant covers all Phase 2 activities?
Yes.
Okay. I am of the opinion that the 67,000, because we've been in the pipeline for 2 years and of doing it with capital improvement, that this should stay on track. And that at the time, if we get awarded the grant, we should have more priorities at the time. I'm interested in moving forward in leveraging other outside external dollars to leverage the public tax dollar investment that they've made with the park bond. And so while it's on top of it, the parks, right, where our Parks Department leverages grant opportunities in order to expand on the investment we're already making.
To clarify your point, the $67,000 is coming from the bond money?
Under Martin Road, we could cover it if, depending on when it's what.
If we pass this tonight, where are we committing the funds from?
It would either be the park bond or capital outlay.
Don't we have to be specific?
It says capital outlay.
Oh, it said
So it'd be
capital
capital
outlay.
outlay based on the proposal.
Right.
Well, I will just say, since I raised this in the first place, I'm comfortable if what I heard is we have to get an application in by Friday, and we have until October to rescind that, and really maybe even till December or January. We could tell them before they made the award. I'm sure they wouldn't penalize us for that. But we need to have that conversation. I don't know exactly how we're going to do that. We started to have it already this month in our budget, but we need to have the conversation about prioritizing our capital projects, and this fits in that. So to the extent that we still have until October to have that conversation, I'm comfortable approving this evening.
Yeah.
But this is just going to become a recurring theme for us as we talk about capital projects.
Let me ask if this was a question. I hope it's not an unfair question, but if you approved this at the park bond a year ago, why are we getting it a week before the deadline?
Well, the grant opened earlier this year, and we had to do a public hearing and had to notice the public, and I think that it didn't make it in the last cut to come before council in the early March meeting.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
you have three, sorry, through the chair, there are 3 grant applications on your grant writing machine right now. And I understand how time intensive that is, particularly with state and federal dollars. Very complicated process. So it sounds like there's compromise in here, in that there's time to address your concerns that you've raised tonight. But we don't want to miss an opportunity either and delay, and we'll figure out through the budgeting process where this fits. So
I think we as a staff can make a commitment to bring back clarification around the budget line impact, and then commitments that we would intend to bring to council to support on the April 22nd final budget adoption, if that's acceptable.
It is to me, and I just want to be clear, Lorena, you know I support our parks, and I love your efforts that you've made in grant writing, and I know we're going to get you some more support for that, and it's needed and important, so just to understand it really is coming out of that capital discussion.
If I may, through the chair, I would like to know what we have spent and what we have remaining of the $2 million parks bond. That will at least give us an idea of how much more we can spend in our parks, not touching capital outlay.
Absolutely, we will include that in the budget process as part of the update during the presentation.
We should also include the streets and sewers fund as well.
But understanding tonight's money is coming out of capital outlay as it stands today, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Lorena. So there's nothing you want us to vote on now because it's on the consent agenda, right?
Right.
Okay. And Sharon, just so you know, when we get to the consent agenda, then you're free to ask questions about the consent agenda, okay? I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to. Got it. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Lorena. So now we're moving on to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda is normally things we consider routine, some less than routine, maybe. And we enact in one motion unless council pulls something from the consent agenda. So let me read that now. Item A is the approval of the meeting minutes of March 11th, 2019. Item B is the approval of the resolution of support and financial commitment to the project in the amount of $67,200 and the submittal of the proposed MDNR recreation grant application for Martin Road Park improvements. Item C is the approval of the resolution of support and financial commitment to the project for the MDNR Trust Fund and Land and Water Conservation Fund grant in the amount of $203,500 and submittal of both MDNR recreation grant applications for Geary Park improvements. Item D, approval to pay for and accept grant funding for a Kaboom Play Everywhere grant for Geary Park improvements in the amount up to $80,000 with no match required. Item E is the approval of the proclamation to proclaim April 2019 as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. Item F is the approval of the purchase of soccer goals and nets from Sator Soccer in the amount of $5,000 charged to the Operating Supplies Youth Sports account. Item G is the approval of the purchase of soccer uniforms from Neighborhood Artisans in the amount of $3,000 and charge it to the Operating Supplies Youth Sports account. Item H is the approval of the resolution for the city's request for reimbursement from Oakland County under the West Nile Virus Program, and that the city clerk be authorized to sign it and to approve the purchase of Natural XRT at a cost of $9,454.08, in expenses $6,877.67 after the reimbursement from Oakland County, and that expense be charged to the Water Sewer Fund Operating Supplies account. Item I is the approval to pay Lexapol in the amount of $5,562 to be paid from the account as noted by the acting fire chief. Item J is the approval of the Storm Drainage Facilities Maintenance Agreement with 1201 Woodward Heights LLC and authorization for the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement. Item K is the approval of the Storm Facilities Maintenance Agreement with JS Senior Living LLC and authorization for the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement. Item L is the approval of the 2019 enrollment in the PoliceOne.com Academy, April 1st, 2019 to March 31st, 2020 for 47 seats, $65 per seat for a total of $3,055 as to come from the account as noted. Item M is the approval of the license agreement as submitted with Jay's Penalty Box LLC for outdoor cafe use on the pedestrian alley and to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement and authorize the city manager to approve the cafe fence. Item N is the approval of the license agreements as submitted with Dino Drop Inc. for outdoor cafe uses on the pedestrian alley and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement and authorize the city manager to approve the cafe fences. I love that we're doing cafe fences and alleys now. Item O is the approval of the ordinance amending Chapter 9, Section 9 through 72 of the Ferndale Code of Ordinances as submitted by the city attorney and regarding fireworks. Approval of the Granicus pilot proposal for agenda management, board and commission management, and video encoding hardware and software in the amount of $13,902 for the first year, $14,875.14 for year 2, and $15,916.40 for year 3 to be charged to the city clerk contractual account and authorization for the city clerk to execute the quote. Item Q, approval to authorize the city clerk to execute the quote from Hart Interactive to replace 14 relay modems at a cost of $199 per unit required for electronic transmission from Verity Scan for a total of $2,786 to be charged to Elections Repair and Maintenance account. And finally, item R is the approval of the bills and payroll as submitted by the city manager's office and subject to review by the council finance committee. What is council's pleasure on the consent agenda?
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Martin and supported by Polika. Now, is there anyone from the public that would like to discuss anything on the consent agenda?
I just want to make one comment.
That would be from council.
Oh, sorry.
No one from the public that would, yes. I know you're in the public. Right? Yes, all right, council, do you have comments or questions?
I just want to say that a couple years ago, I got contacted by a lot of residents about fireworks and the hours and days of it being allowed, and that cities across Michigan were hamstrung in doing anything because the state legislature took away local control. They preempted local decision-making in order to have it made at the state level. Therefore, the timelines and how many days and hours were set by the state. That is changing a little bit, and they are giving back more local control to cities. And tonight we are approving that. And Dan, I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how it's changing. I guess I could go in and look at it, but the days and times are going narrower. Only one day for December 31st until January 1st for the New Year's, June 29th through July 4th to 11:45. And if July 5th, that date is a Friday or Saturday until 11:45. So it's an improvement, and it's not to where we were before they took away local control, but it's better than what it was.
Right, just through the chair, there formerly was approximately, well, not about 30 days where people could ignite, discharge, and set off commercial, consumer fireworks, and now the municipality's been provided authority to pull back some of that regulation and provide for 12 days. This ordinance is consistent with the Public Act, which passed in December of 2018. It also specifies a specific civil infraction, not a misdemeanor, in the event of a violation.
Thank you. So a 15-day improvement.
12 from
12,
30.
15, yeah, thank you.
No, it's a civil infraction.
Yeah, and I would just add to that. I mean, when they passed that law, it was, you know, Ferndale sounded like a war zone for many, many days. And it was, and we heard this, you know, we gathered other mayors together, we lobbied our legislators, and just up until last year, they didn't do anything, or this year, they didn't do anything about it. So I'm really excited that the legislature revisited this. We'll see what 12 days is like, but I know the fire chief has got to be happy. He was a big opponent of the expanded days. So really excited that our state has done this. A number of communities are limiting the number of days, and I proudly support restricting the number of days that we allow for fireworks.
If I'm not mistaken, Mayor, I think this was one of the few good things that came out of lame duck.
Yeah, it did, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, it did. So, all right, anything else on the consent agenda? If not, Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Piana?
Yes.
Councilmember Leaks May?
Yes.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. The consent agenda is adopted. So we'll move on now to the regular agenda. Item A is the consideration of the appointment of Matthew Showalter to the Planning Commission. Is Matthew here? There's Matthew.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Come on up, sir. Just introduce yourself or reintroduce yourself. I know you served on the Planning Commission once before. We're happy to have you here. You know you heard some of the kinds of projects that you're going to be hearing. You don't have any second thoughts, do you?
I am an architect. I work out in Troy. Work on mainly large colleges through the University of Michigan and Michigan State. And was on the Planning Commission about 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, and then I had to move away for a year because of another development. Pushed me out, and then finally bought a house in Ferndale, so I'm here for a while now.
Excellent. Great. Appreciate you being willing to serve again.
Thanks.
Anyone have any questions for Matthew? All right. A motion would be in order.
I move to confirm the appointment of Matthew Showalter to the Planning Commission for a term ending December 31st, 2020.
Support.
Moved by Piana and supported by Martin. Any discussion?
Welcome back.
All right. Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Leaks May?
Yes.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika?
Yes.
Councilmember Piana?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes. Thank you. That item is adopted. Thank you, sir. Next item of business would be the police study update.
You know, Mayor, through the chair, we would actually move to request this be placed to the April 8th agenda, if possible.
To the what? I'm sorry.
The April 8th agenda, the next agenda.
Okay. We can do that.
I'm bummed. I wanted to hear it. You know?
Well, Raylon might not like that, but, okay, so, I'm just looking to our parliamentarian lawyer. Do we need to table it or something? I mean, because we approved the agenda already, so what technically do we need?
Tabling it to the next regular agenda.
Thank you.
I would move that we table the police study update to the next regular agenda on April 8th.
Support.
Ooh, moved by Martin, supported by Leaks May. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right. Thanks. Item C is a consideration of the bid from Hutch Paving, Inc. to perform the 2019 Pavement Improvement Program. Carlos, you're going to introduce that item.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
It's hard to believe we're already talking about this.
Doesn't it seem like it?
I guess the positive thing is we're pretty much done with winter and the warmer temperatures are going to start.
You
So.
just jinxed it, you know.
Yeah.
We're going to get snow
Well.
now.
Okay, 3 bids were received March 14th for the 2019 pavement program. The work generally consists of roadway resurfacing of approximately 5.5 miles of residential streets, including but not limited to 46,000 square yards of old milling HMA, which makes Hopkins asphalt. 5,000 feet of curb and gutter replacement, 8,900 square feet of sidewalks and ramps, drainage structure adjustments, pavement markings, and associated work items. I guess I believe if any resident or anybody that has interest would like to see the streets we have lined up for 2019, it's on the city's website. They can go there and look at what we have going this year.
Yep.
Where we're going to be. We recommend awarding the low bid. Thank you. I don't mind at all.
So this isn't very helpful.
Recommend awarding the low bid at $2,632,766.50. That was submitted by Hutch Paving, located in Warren, Michigan, based on the per unit cost bid tabulation. We also recommend giving the DPW director approval to sign contract documents following the approval of the city attorney. The expense would be charged to road park bonds, capital account number 450. It's 450-000-977-700. At this time, I'll answer any questions you have. We also have Justin Wellman here from Giffords Webster. That consists of these.
Carlos, one question. Oh, there it is. Thank you. It's easier to see on that map. I was going to ask you if there were any streets in the CBD. So maybe the tail end of East Troy, and then that's Sarasota underneath, right?
Or Saratoga?
I mean Saratoga. So, okay. Just in terms
West
of
Marshall,
congestion
right?
downtown.
When does
It
Saratoga
is what
happen?
it is.
I don't, well, it obviously happening this year, I don't know when. Can you let me know when I need to be out of town?
Without a doubt.
I do have a couple of questions. I'm going to put you on the spot. Sorry, Carlos. So in 2017, we had a company that did not complete the work, and some of the work that they did complete was unacceptable, and they were supposed to come back in 2018 to complete that. Has all of that work been completed by that company?
So you referenced 2017
Yes.
construction? Okay, so the 2017 construction was all completed.
Okay, so.
In 2018.
That's my next question.
Same company did the project in 18 that did 17. That was incomplete, and they are scheduled to return to complete those streets that were left incomplete last year.
Okay.
So is that map inclusive of the work to be completed as well, or just the new stuff?
That includes the streets that were not done last year as well.
Okay.
So,
I think there's some areas that it says, well, it doesn't show it on this map, but it does show on here where Florence Cement is gonna complete.
So McDowell off of Woodward Heights was one they didn't complete last year. Breckenridge and Rosewood off of Hilton.
Yeah.
All the streets that Florence didn't complete last year, they are required to complete this spring.
Manatee.
Yep.
Amada.
Yep.
Good. All right. Any other questions?
How will residents be notified, since this is gonna be a new company now, how are they gonna be notified that when their street's gonna be worked on and alternate,
Okay.
travel options?
So I've been working with Kara. We are going to send out a general notice to everyone that has work planned for their street this year to let them know construction will take place this year. When their street gets closer to construction, the contractor is required to give them a minimum of 3 days' notice when they plan to be out there. But signs will start going up in advance of the construction. So a general notice in the spring, followed by more detailed notices as we get closer to working on.
Yeah. And I will just say, you don't need to leave town.
I'm joking.
My street was done a couple years ago, not my block, but my street, and, you know, they did a great job of allowing cars to navigate, and it was relatively painless, I have to say, and so I don't want people to freak out. They do a nice job of accommodating the residents, in my view.
Yeah. Well, and
much
our street, I know, was rebuilt back in the 99 or 2000, whenever we had the last bond. And so my assumption would be you're just gonna scrape off the surface and resurface. Because the gutters, I think, are all, curbs and gutters are pretty excellent.
So a motion would be in order. Yeah, you wanna make it?
No, not really. Oh, you got to.
I move, did you want to make it?
I don't care, go ahead.
I move to approve the low bid of $2,632,766.50 from Hutch Paving, Inc., 300 East 10 Mile Road, Warren, Michigan, 48091, to perform the 2019 pavement improvement program. The expense would be charged to Road Park Bonds, capital account number 450-000-977.700, and approval for the DPW director to sign contract documents following the approval of the city attorney.
Support. Moved by Polika, supported by Martin. Any other comments or questions?
Pinecrest.
Well needed.
Pinecrest needs it badly.
It does.
Finally on the list. All right, Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika?
Yes.
Councilmember Piana?
Yes.
Councilmember Leaks May?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Thanks, Carlos. Our final item is the consideration of the purchase of Gas Boy fuel management software and fuel pumps. Whose item is that? Dan. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, council. How are we doing tonight? So you may or may not remember, probably last November-ish, give or take, it was brought forward to do a software upgrade to our fuel system. That kind of stalled out. Last fiscal year, $100,000 was budgeted to do an upgrade to our fuel system. At that time, when you did hear the previous call to action to upgrade our fuel system, that was not including upgrading our pumps, the actual equipment itself. This proposal does that. Our software is in kind of dire need of upgrade. Our pumps currently floating right around like 30 years old. So with this, they would be reconstructing the island and installing new fuel pumps, in addition to upgrading the software that we use to manage our fleet. Instead of going, so kind of looked at, you know, what would happen if we were to decide to move away from actually storing our fuel on site and switching over to fuel cards. Came up with that would kind of cost us right around like 23% more per year. More fuel, we decided to switch over to purchasing our fuel retail versus upgrading our fuel site. And you can see kind of in Exhibit A that I got down here. Just kind of a cost comparison versus upgrading our system versus switching over to fuel cards. Pretty conservative, using 5% from year to year for that upgrade or for increases in costs. So overall, we are recommending to actually upgrade our pumps. Gas Boy has been in the fuel pump industry for the last 100 years or so. Our fuel tank monitoring system is underneath their umbrella, so one of the reasons I did like going with Gas Boy is it keeps everything under one umbrella versus having a fleet management software and then having another company that does the pumps, another company that does the monitoring system. It's kind of all under one umbrella, one-stop shop, and they integrate very well together. So our recommendation is to upgrade our fuel pumps. I do have a contingency of $20,000 on there. That's just because we don't know once we get in the ground if we're going to have to upgrade any conduit or anything like that. So like to be able to just move forward with that project if we do need to upgrade anything versus having to stop midway through and come back to council to request for upgrades. Any questions?
All right. Anyone have questions?
Through the chair, I do.
Yeah. Councilwoman and then Mayor Pro Tem.
So is the fuel tank underground, so it's an underground storage tank?
Yes.
In our DPW yard?
Yes.
And how old is that tank?
So those tanks were installed in the 90s, probably about 8 years ago. Our tanks were relined.
Yes.
So we had one tank that was relined just this last summer. That was our diesel tank. Or unleaded, I can't, vice versa. One was done within the last year, one was done within the last like 8 years. Those should be good for quite some time. If you can see in the cost table down below, I do have 10 years from now doing another lining for one of our tanks. If we were to decide to switch away and go and just start using gas cards versus keeping fuel on site, we would have to do a site remediation. That cost is factored in there too. That could be anywhere like 40 grand on the low end to upwards of 80 grand, depending on the soil contamination and what they have to do there. You can no longer per DEQ just fill your tanks and call it a day. You actually have to remediate your entire site and remove the fuel tanks.
So my additional questions building on it is that we brought up that prioritizing, redoing, or looking at the DPW building as a capital needs project identified by the city. And so I know there was some interest as a vision for that space of coming sort of a environmental demonstration center. And so I just wanted to put it out there that having an underground storage tank of fuel may be a mismatch with some of those future values. And so I just wanted to make sure that we talk about this. While we've already expended money on lining the tank, and that's good for another use of time, but underground storage tanks are environmentally hazardous if they leak. And so I know that we've been making sure that it doesn't, but it needs to be part of this conversation, I think, about the future capital improvement needs of this site.
Yeah, if I may, there's 2 DPW sites that are currently being evaluated for feasibility, and that is definitely on the radar in terms of issues and impacts, but we're looking at the Southwest Storage Yard, and we're looking at the current DPW yard and just looking at service needs and service opportunities for both of those.
And the environmental sustainability component of it as well needs to be a factor in weighing how we go about upgrading those properties.
Oh yeah, that's definitely something to consider, but at this time, 100% of our fleet is unleaded or diesel, so kind of got to operate within that. We don't have to move forward with the upgrade. We could switch over to fuel cards, or just fuel prices will go, our overall costs will go up. We do have an intake monitoring system that so we do have a leak detection system that is in our tanks that we have to monitor. We have quarterly inspections done by a third party along with yearly inspections done by the state of Michigan to certify us to operate those underground storage tanks.
Okay.
So my question actually feeds off of yours.
I know what you're gonna ask.
No, I don't think you do.
Okay.
I'm curious to know how our environmental sustainability person has been involved in this conversation. And were they?
She was not involved in this conversation. End of the day, we have to upgrade our fuel system.
Yep.
So if we make that decision to switch over to fuel cards, that can be done quite seamlessly, but we will pay probably around 23% more in fuel. You do get a rebate back on your overall spending, but the dollar amount that we would kind of fall into, we'd get 1.25% back on all the fuel that we would spend, so we'd get back probably about $3,000 a year on our overall fuel costs.
I can add that.
What I was really more interested is her input on the pumps, the equipment that's going to be used, and how efficient and environmentally better than some other equipment. So that's the only reason why I thought she may have added some value to looking into this.
Sure. So the sustainability planner is involved in all the facility reviews and doing the assessment on the DPW and the Southwest Storage Yard in terms of opportunities and services. In this case, this was more of an operational decision. The current system is to Dan's point, pretty antiquated. They don't have a great sense of control or even usage. So it's sustainable with respect to just actual operating efficiencies that they'll gain, if that makes sense.
Any other questions?
Or a motion?
I move to approve the purchase of Gas Boy fuel management software and fuel pumps, the installation to be completed by R.W. Mercer, and that the expense be charged to the general fund motor pool capital outlay account number 101-443-977-000.
Is there support?
Support.
Moved by Polika, supported by Leaks May. Any further discussion? Comments? If not, Marnie, would you call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Polika?
Yes.
Councilmember Piana?
Yes.
Councilmember Leaks May?
Yes.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Thanks, Dan. I guess before we go to call the council, I did promise if there's anyone from the public that would like to address council, we can reopen call the audience. If there's anybody that would like to address council before we.
Me again. Two things. One, you guys were talking about fireworks, 4th of July and that kind of thing. Being in the roofing business, I want to just put it out there. I don't think people have a true understanding of during that time, during 4th of July and New Year's, people are out shooting their guns without any idea of where that bullet's going to land after it has propelled itself from that shotgun or handgun or whatever it is. David and I have gone to places where we've put on a recent roof, and the people call us in the dead of winter and said, you know, our roof is leaking, and we get up in the attic and a handful of bullets will be there. We had the unfortunate discovery in our own roof this past summer. It's like, okay, why is it leaking in this peculiar spot? And fortunately, it was in the garage, and sure enough, David got up on the roof, and it was a bullet. So if you do shoot a gun, the bullet does not get absorbed into the stratosphere. It does have to land someplace, and it's usually in somebody's roof, or it could be something much more detrimental. And then just for Lorena, I think this would be wonderful public information. Lorena has done an incredible job in these few years that she's been there, writing up all of these grants and procuring all these extra dollars that the city and the community and our taxes don't have to go through. I think it would be wonderful to have public information as to how much money has been garnered through her hard work to support the parks and stuff like that. I know as grant writing for the band, it's tedious. None of us like it, but we love the result. We couldn't do what we do if not for the grants that we are awarded. If we're so blessed to have received that award. When you put in that work and you do not receive that, it's like, okay, you put in 40 hours for nothing. So I think she deserves kudos, and I think the public needs to know just how many dollars that she does acquire to the improvement of all of our Parks and Recs programs.
Well said. And if we can find that number, I'd like to know that as well. Thank you, Sharon. Anyone else would like to address council? All right, next item of business is call to council. Police chief, anything for the good of the community? No. Fire chief, anything for the good of the community this evening?
Just wanted to put something out there. So last summer, we sent 3 of our firefighters to a training to instruct the child safety seats. So when the people come home with newborns, their child is safe. We've had pretty good success. We've had 59 already since August. But the sad part is we've only had 1 Ferndale resident out of the 59.
Wow.
So I'm going to plan on working with Kara and Lindsay to get the word out a little better. And the only other thing I wanted to say was we do offer a smoke detector program. You can call our non-emergency line 248-546-2510. Press 0 when you hear the prompt. We'll be happy to help you out.
Great.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Chief. Thank you. Carlos, anything else from DPW?
Quick reminder, April 1st, residents can start putting their bagged yard waste back to the curb. It will be picked up on their normally scheduled collection day, not bulk, but bag, not in the street, but in an approved recycle bag or clearly labeled recycle can. Monday, April 1st.
Monday, April 1st, next Monday. Good.
Oh,
Good to know. I raked some up yesterday.
Means I gotta rake
Lorena, anything else from recreation this evening?
2 quick announcements. One, our summer camp registration will open up on Monday. We do have early bird registration where you do get a discount if you register in advance. And in addition, we have extravaganza that's going to be held on April 13th, which is a Saturday. And we're doing a park hop where we're featuring several different parks. And we've gotten a lot of participation from the various city departments again this year. And Easter baskets for the golden egg prize at each park. So if anyone's interested, any businesses or groups or residents of donating a basket, just contact Parks and Recreation.
Sure, council will do one.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
We have to do a good one, though. Did you see DPW's last week?
Oh, and, right. We do have a traveling trophy for the winner.
Down, all right.
Does it get like a Vector in that?
Thanks, Lorena. Parking, any parking news to share for the community?
Another thing for April 1st, the parking rates do go up. Signs will be posted on all the meters. If you're out and about on Sunday, you will probably see parking staff working on that.
Yep. Thank you. Kara, anything from community engagement and communications?
Not really, but I did just want to say that information about the change in parking rates, as well as enforcement hours, and this road repaving map and other kinds of wonderful things are all available on the homepage of our website. So you don't even have to go digging for it. It's right on the homepage.
Thank you, Kara. Jordan, anything from community and economic development?
Nothing else this evening.
Thank you. I had to think about that. Cheryl, anything from finance this evening?
I just wanted to let you know that it is $410,000 in grant funds for the past 2 years.
Yeah! Wow, you're fast. You just knew that off the top of your head. Maybe. Marty, anything from the clerk's office?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
All right. Joe, anything from the city manager's office?
Just one thing, a comment on Kevin's announcement on parking rates. Related to the DOT, actually, the city had a meeting with Standard & Poor's, and we got an update on our credit rating, and I'm just happy to announce that we've maintained an AA- credit rating, which is a top-tier credit rating for communities, which is fantastic work for everybody involved with the budget process and city leadership. So kudos to everyone, and that resulted in a favorable interest rate for the DOT bonds that are going to be issued, hopefully April 8th, and our cash comes in April 9th. So.
Nice. Cool. Thank you. Dan, anything?
Just as part of the state's Transportation Funding Act, there is a requirement for certain road projects for the city to adopt a local pavement warranty program, and I'll be working with Carlos on that. There is a a timeline of September 8th for communities to adopt that type of program. So you will be looking for that within the next couple of months.
Thank you. And thanks for your help with the fireworks ordinance as well. I know you've been working on that with Greg and the ordinance committee. Councilman Martin.
Two things, maybe more as I think about it. Had the opportunity last week to spend some time with the library board of directors, the Ferndale Regional District Library Board of Directors, and we had a really good conversation, almost predominantly about Baker. But I think it's good to maintain those lines of communication, and I'd like to do that more regularly, maybe quarterly, just to keep the conversation up and keep each governmental entities engaged. So that was a very productive time, and thank you for the opportunity, and we'll want to keep that up. The second thing was just simply kudos to the Ferndale High School cast of Addams Family. Saw it yesterday, and it was terrific. It was a lot of fun, and they always do a great job. So congratulations to cast and crew there. That's it. I'm sorry.
You could say it also, but yes, Councilwoman Lakes May.
All right. So first, I'd like to share my gratitude for being able to attend the Capitol Conference last week. It was there were many, many great topics, but the focus, what I really zoned in on, was the talks about affordable housing. So it's my hope that the city, we will start to take that a little more seriously and do something in order to provide affordable housing for residents in this community or new residents. I would also like to congratulate Melanie Piana for having her debut, really, as board president at the Capitol Conference. She did a wonderful job and represented Ferndale well. You would have all been proud. I would also like to congratulate Greg Pollock and myself because we received, I don't give myself enough kudos sometimes, so I'm doing it now. So we received educational awards through the MML Capitol Conference. So
congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations to you too. I would also like to thank you, Dan Martin, for suggesting that the police department provide the escort because that is underway now. Thank you. Good. Thank you, Chief in the back there, for responding. And so if you'd like to see the undefeated Ferndale Winter Guard team, please come to the Friends and Family Night this Friday night at 7:30. It's the night before they go to state championships, which they will have that police escort out of their as they're heading out to their state championships at Saginaw Valley State University. Let's see, is there anything else? I think that's it. 7:30, Ferndale High School gym. Friday.
Councilwoman Piana.
Yes.
Well, I just want to say thank you for those kind words, Councilwoman Leaks May.
Councilman.
I said Councilwoman.
Okay.
I said woman. The Michigan Municipal League Conference was, I think, one of the best that I've attended in a long time. And I'm also hearing that from others as well. The keynote speakers were really pertinent to our time. One was on civility in America and what's happening at the local level, and I would like to explore a little bit more with staff how to bring in the American Institute for Civility and see what we could do there to improve our conversations and connections and relationships in the city of Ferndale. The other one was I had an opportunity to help support the nonpartisan sort of research center, the Citizens Research Council of Michigan, on a new report, Rethinking Regional Transportation in Michigan's Urban Areas. I think we get a new transportation report every year telling us how to invest in more transportation, and the powers above local communities are still trying to make that happen. But what I really thought was important takeaway out of this report is that public transit is a vital public amenity. And we've been treating it as sort of a subsidized low-income program. And that's what the report really is talking about, how we need to shift our thinking to be more competitive with attracting talent and helping employers find the right talent so people will stay and live here in our great communities, not only in Ferndale, but the region as a whole. So I encourage you to go look at it, crcmich.org. And I guess I'll make the announcement now, is that I'm really proud to be on the new Oakland County Public Transportation Authority. I am now the board chair because I can't get enough of transportation, but I'm so dedicated to this cause because so many people in Ferndale have expressed the need for public transportation and it getting better, not only to get into Ferndale, but also to get to their jobs, school, and doctor's appointments. And so I will keep fighting that fight until something changes. I did it before I got on council, and I'm still doing it while I'm here. So onward and upward. So I'm really happy to represent Ferndale and some other communities in Southeast Michigan. And the Public Transportation Authority is the 1 mil public entity that collects that millage and then contracts it out for service. And right now they contract out to service for smart bus system. So I'm just thankful that Oakland County Treasurer Andy Meisner and Dave Woodward, who is the Oakland County Democratic Chair of the commission, appointed me. So thank you so much to having me be a part of that on behalf of South Oakland County communities.
Mayor Pro Tem Polika.
As mentioned, I attended the Capitol Conference with Councilwomen Leaks May and Piana, and Melanie, you should be very proud of the convention. It was really incredible. You presented and represented Ferndale very well, and the work that you put in the MML, you should be proud of. As always, I always learn something new at the convention, conference. And this year I chose to be a moderator, and that gave me an opportunity to work with the staff a little bit. And it's very impressive to see how much work the staff does every day in Lansing, working for our communities, representing our communities. It really is. So I got a lot out of that, interacting with the staff this time. So, and that's all I have.
Just a couple quick things. Speaking of the Capitol, I was in the nation's capital a couple weeks ago, lobbying legislators or meeting and just sharing our issues with them. And so I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Polika for running the meeting in my absence. Appreciate that. The other thing is, because I wasn't at the last meeting, so this happened a month or so ago, but I haven't really commented on it yet. But so it was in the news that our largest employer in town, Garden Fresh, was sold to a Canadian company, a company out of Quebec. And not only are they our largest employer, but I think they're our third largest taxpayer. So this is a very significant company and a very important member of our community. They have been for a long time. And so we've had some initial olive branches to the new firm. We're getting positive initial responses, but I've been invited by Jack Aronson and some other folks who are going to meet with them to join those conversations. So I just want to, sort of share with the city that we're going to do everything we can to convince this wonderful Quebec firm that Ferndale is a great place for them to do business. And there's no need to pick up and move anywhere, that we've got a great city and a great facilities and great employees. And we will make that case. And I'm cautiously optimistic that they didn't buy the company simply to move it. But we'll know more. But I wanted to share that update, and we'll keep you posted as those discussions progress. And so with that, that's all we have. So our meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.